What's up, YouTube? I'm Lone here, gonna play this game called 9 Mile Ride. I guess it's based on a true story about two boys named Paul and Harry. Uh, they're both in the woods here in Crowthorne, England, whittling the time away or whatever. And Harry dies, or Paul dies, one of the two. Sorry if I get it mixed up. So anyway, Harry dies, and Paul can't take the loss, so he decides to do one grand finale thing, I guess, to deal with the loss. So let's go in here, Crowthorne, England, 2010. Ooh. In May, there were fires in Crowthorne Wood. Berkshire Local called them serious, but then this is Berkshire Local, where serious fires can be constituted by turning the aga on full. Okay, I said that right. They weren't that serious. The trees down 9 Mile Ride went a bit black, but that was about it. It's not like anyone died. Oh, okay. But just for the record, 9 Mile Ride isn't 9 miles long. It's 6.7. Okay. I ran it once. Okay, so let's start this story. And the first time I tried to run all the way from my house to Crowthorne, I managed about 20 minutes before the asthma kicked in and I fell over. Harry wasn't there that time. Harry's legs were too long for running. Really. He wasn't there for the fires either. Shame, really, because I reckon you could have seen the smoke from his back door. Stand on the cracked pot next to the gnome that looked like Crippen, and you couldn't see the flames. I told him it looked like Crippen, so he colored its mustache in black to make it less obvious. I told him Crippen had a blanking black mustache. You tit, you've made it worse. Sorry, I'm not going to say the bad language. So he smashed it on the patio. Now it looks more like Crippen's missus. Didn't know the game was going to have profanity. Shame as well that he missed the smell, like cigarettes and bonfire nights. 2 Novembers ago, especially, the night with the treacle toffee that ripped his tooth out, the smoke that set my asthma off, and the rogue Catherine wheel. What a vision. His uncle Archie, arsehole on Sherry, handily fixing it to the fence post and then shrieking as it whizzed off and bounced from window to shed. Okay. To washing line, once upon it seized one of his Aunt Helen's gargantuan braziers, and vanished into the cul-de-sac. Strange story. Jesus, what a vision. My house to Crowthorne is approximately 8.6 miles. A distance I can sometimes manage, sometimes not, depending wholly on the state of my lungs. Oops, sorry, I missed that. Doggone, I hope you guys read that. Last year saw a spat of continuous knots, resultant, I suspect, from 3 seasons of Paul Mulreds and my Mayfair Blues. You smoking, kid? And always in the graveyard. There was some kind of irony there, I'm sure, some kind of strange mockery in only ever smoking with my back against a headstone. And some poor sod stretched out 6 feet beneath. The old girl with the lilies called it disrespectful. Actually, she went further than that and used some rather gratuitous language that surprised me in a woman of her age. Dis-effing respectful? Okay. I thought at the time it was quite impressive how she managed to split the word up like that. Effortless. There was, however, never any disrespect intended. Apart, maybe, from the bit when Harry told her to piss off. You creased old bat. What are you doing here? Reserving your spot? It was just that the graveyard was quiet. It's peaceful with the dead. That and the fact that in such open space, the smoke didn't cling to my clothes, to my hair. That way my mum wouldn't smell it on me when I got home. Okay. That afternoon in May, I went back to the graveyard as they put the fires out. Smoke just above the tree line, charcoal black, getting softer as it made its slow way into heaven until it became the same dull color as the sky, and vanished altogether. No flames by that stage, not even when I stood on Harry's headstone and jumped. I missed it on the way back, of course, and fell to earth with such a smack it must have rocked his bones below. He didn't mention it, but I apologized anyway. My father brought me here once when I was 4, just before I went away to school. We had a picnic. And there was this dead rabbit there with half its arse torn out. Not in the picnic, obviously. On the ground there. Why did he put the rug next to the rabbit? I had one called Ears. Imaginative. Come on, I was 3 when we got it. Anyway, there was Bunny, splashed all over the twigs, scared the blinking life out of me. I mean, all rabbits look the same when you're 4, don't they? Wouldn't know, never even had a goldfish. Poor deprived Paul. It was that time of year when the leaves were just starting to come back through, but last year's dead had left a thick carpet across the ground. The stench of them rotting was almost enough to drown out the smoke. I remember how he settled on the foot of a silver birch, placed his feet inside the nooks made by their roots, and stared up. I watched him sat there with the cig hanging out of his mouth and huddled up in that off-white jacket that looked like something a tramp would have thrown out. I remember the birth of that jacket. Where the F did you find that thing? Pound store in Camden. You got that for a quid? No, they weren't selling it. Found it on the floor. Jesus, I was going to say someone ripped you off. What do you want for your birthday, Harry? Dunno. A maypole? A maypole. You heard me, a maypole. Birthday on May Day, and I've never had a go on one. You've got to give me one more go on that, then you know I can't buy presents. Better than you, mind. What's that supposed to mean? I thought about my 17th. He got me an ashtray. I told him I don't smoke. He said, you do now. That cost me a bomb. I said, what's it effing made of? Ivory? He said, close enough. Have a think about it. Tell me what you've got when you've got something. We'd spend the first part of the day skimming stones across the pond in the park. The groundskeeper had told us to move on after one went bouncing off the foot of a swan, and since then we have moved to the graveyard. And into the woods where we stayed for a while, navigating the trees and disrupting the wildlife. I watched as Harry threw his tab and onto the leaves. You'll set fire if you're not careful. Nah, too damp. Fancy the pub? Can't really. Need to be getting back soon. Sure? Yeah. Bus is finished in half an hour. Suit yourself. Tomorrow? Yeah. Yeah, off we go to the bus, huh? We wandered back to the bus stop talking about Angelina Jolie. I don't like her, I said. I think her lips are too big. Yeah, me too. You wouldn't say no, though, would you? No, I guess not. Paul? You don't need to give me anything for my birthday. Just buy me a drink sometime. You got me something. I have to. I don't want anything. Tell you what. I'll get you an ashtray. A big one. Big enough to fit this effing forest in. Ah, alright. Fair enough. Biggest one you've ever seen. You do that. See you tomorrow, Paul. See you tomorrow. Okay. I went to bed that night thinking of rain and riots and exams and blistering Aprils and boobs and spinning cuts and Afghanistan and more rain and more exams. Jeez. I had a cup of tea, brushed my teeth, put clean clothes on for tomorrow, and left my others in a heap on the floor. You're sleeping in your clean clothes? Okay. And then Mom came in the next morning with coffee and a look on her face that I hadn't seen before. Paul, love. A look I hope I never see again. I'm so sorry, love. It's your friend, Harry. Uh-oh. It was a Tuesday that day. I remember it was a Tuesday because the Bimham came on Tuesdays and left crap all over the pavements. I was looking out the window and there was a milk bottle and the lavender. They never picked anything up after themselves. And I suppose it wasn't their fault, really, because people should tie up their rubbish better. But it still pissed me off when we did ours fine and other people's crap ended up rolling into our garden. One day I would tell them, "Are you all right, love?" One day I would get our rubbish bins and tip it all over their lawns. "Paul, darling." One day I would get our bins and smash it through their effing windows. "Paul?" "Yes." "Are you all right?" "Yes." The funeral was on a Tuesday too. Back in the churchyard where my two new suit and the two gray spring with my dad at my shoulder giving me drags of his cigarette when my mum wasn't looking. He didn't know what to say. He was dragging up film quotes and his favorite cliches. Time heals all wounds, quote unquote. Yep. He'll never really be gone. Nope. You can keep his memory alive. Yes, Dad. It's okay to cry, Paul. Dad, I've been crying all effing morning. I need a rest. He laughed and patted me on the arm. Don't swear, Paul. He carried on patting while it started to chafe. I know it isn't fair, but you'll be okay. That at least was close enough to the truth. The whole day had this heavy sense of unfairness about it, a selfish kind of unfairness that wasn't about Harry, it was about me. Isn't it a terrible thing to die as young as that? Yes, it is, but lucky him, who didn't have to hang around for this bit. I know it wouldn't have been forever anyway, but at least I wanted the chance to drift apart. I at least wanted the option to piss each other off so much we never wanted to set eyes on the other's face again. To see him on Facebook in a couple of years' time and wonder for a second if he's more successful than I am. One day when your grave is covered up by stone rows and to the others that fell behind, maybe I'd come back. One day when the grief's long gone, just to prove to someone else that I know the dead. I know these cold bones, oral dust, or whatever it is that you've become. When the name Henry, that someone I know chipped off across the stone, becomes the name I call you. Harry once said that his worst fear was ending up like the man on the bus. The man on the bus who died with a syringe sticking out of his arm and went from Charing Cross to Golden Green and back again no less than 7 times before anyone noticed it was blue. Either that or being found face down in a pool of his own vomit. What a effing retarded thing to say. When has anyone ever found face down in a pool of someone else's vomit? Ew. Lung cancer, or throat cancer, he said. He would escape as an inevitability. Any chance, Paul, he said. Any cancer except cancer of the arse, if only for reasons of dignity. In that spirit, later that same day, I went back to the graveyard. I sat with my back against his headstone. I had a cigarette in the hope that the scent of which he was so fond would work its way deep beneath each blade of grass and into the earth. But this is when it hits you that this is your best friend. And there's no better way to do this than some single epoxy cigarette. I bought the petrol from home base and the baklava from a charity shop down Reading Road. They did sell baked glaves in home base, but I thought it might have looked a bit suspicious to buy the two from the same place. What are you planning with these, young man? You know, quiet night in, bit of EastEnders, can of Coke. Of course, I tried the baklava on at home. I discovered my wool allergy. I covered my face in cream and passed my mum on the way downstairs. I didn't know you were shaving now, Paul. I tried, went a bit wrong. I can see that. Anyway, anything for the wash? School jumper could go in. Why, it's only today. What about that t-shirt? Looks a state. It's fine, Mum. Hold up, let me give you a sniff. Mum, get off. Paul, you've been smoking again. I haven't, Mum, honest. Last time I wore this was with Harry. It was him. No, it bloody wasn't. That was weeks ago. We'll talk about this later. Not even your best friend's death can get you off some bocalines. I went back to the forest one night in May. I went via the graveyard. I told him I got his present. Big effing ashtray, biggest one you ever saw, big enough to fit this effing forest. I sat beside his stone and rolled a bad cigarette on the marble base. If you go east from this spot, maybe 15 meters, and take a right at the Celtic cross, you come to an old grave with the same name. We sat there once, myself and his namesake, just as I did now. It was warmer that day. Henry Robinson, 1902 to 2001. My great-grandfather. I'd guessed. Dreadful shame not to make it to 100, don't you think? I don't know. 99's old. 100? What? Bloody ancient. Don't know if I want to be bloody ancient. No, I would. Just think of the perks. Meals on wheels, attractive nurses, someone to wipe your arse for you. Doesn't get better than that. Ha, what did Henry think of it, I wonder? Who? Your great-granddad. Oh, God knows, probably wasn't thinking a lot by that stage. What was he like? No idea. Until I was about 6, I thought he was a raisin. Sultana, actually. Hubert Kanevich, 1798 to 1856. You just don't find people with names like that anymore, do you? I suppose if I went back now, I might still find the tab ends we threw on the soft grass. The ground was hardened by cold now, but dry. The brown leaves crunched underfoot as I made my way back across the graveyard and out onto the road. I stopped at the curb to brush off my sole. New shoes. Brand new shoes brought by my mom in a fit of pity the day before the funeral, a sort of consolation present, something new for something lost. 20 pounds worth of happiness brought home in a box with pink marks splashed across the top like a shirt stain. Or maybe she was just sick of seeing my old ones, more whole than shoe. I made my way back up Honey Hill. The forest seemed to rise out of the ground in front of me, black leaves set on black trunks below a black sky. I put on the baklava as I reached the first tree, hid myself behind the thick base of an oak and surveyed the area. Empty. Everything seemed to work in my favor that night. The emptiness, the dryness of the leaves, the darkness so deep that when I finally went further it was like vanishing into the air. It was like someone had planned it that way. I walked through it I walked before, and even in the dark, a forest is easy enough to navigate when you know it like your own back garden. I came to a spot I liked the look of and took a seat at the base of a silver birch, worked my feet into the gaps made by the roots, and dropped my bag. Inside, taking up most of the space, the petrol. Beside it, cigarettes, a lighter, and a bottle of cream to slap over my face once I got this bastard baklava off. I pulled out petrol, took off the cap, and tipped a bit out at my feet. Then I stood, walked, trailed it after me, letting the strange silver liquid trickle out across the footprints I left between the stones around the trees, over the fallen trunks and rotting vegetation. I splashed it across the higher branches and into the canopy. I let it all out. The last of it I emptied back at the base of the silver birch where I started at. Content that I'd soaked everything I could, I dumped the tin on the ground. I lit 2 cigarettes, one for me, one for him. Then I dropped them on the floor and ran. Oh, in those first few moments, I couldn't smell a thing, but I could hear it starting to crackle. First like the fireplace in my living room, then like our 5th of November bonfire, then there was a whoosh and a roaring and a heat on the back of my legs. I hurled the fallen trunk and battered my way through the branches. The further I went, the easier it got, because the ground was lighting up beneath my feet, the orange glow that followed me. Back across the trampled leaves and snapped twigs and footprints after footprint, and even as I ran, I wondered who wore this route as well as we had. Wow, he did burn down the forest. My feet took me back to the roadside and my lungs took me home. All the way this time. I took the black glove off somewhere at the base of Honey Hill, and the wind felt good against my face. Better than good. Like it was blowing off earth and ashes and dust and sending them spiraling into oblivion. The darkness was going, but the emptiness stayed with me for a while. Past the graveyard, the park with its lake and its swans, and it was only as I was reaching the outskirts of Crowthorne that the siren started and told me I'd done it right. And if the cold ground of the churchyard wasn't soaking that up now, then it never would. Enjoy it, Harry. It might not be ivory, but it's the best I can do. I went to bed that night thinking of the smoke. I pictured it winding down between the weeds and the blades of new grass, through the dirt and the dark. I pictured the ash too, falling like snow across row upon row of white marble and dull stone, settling upon the name and dates of Henry Robinson and between the petals of the roses left wilting at the base. I wondered if anyone would wipe it off, or if it would be left like the moss across the older stones until it was washed by the rain and blown by the wind. Wondered if he would know what I did. The old girl with the lilies might have called it disrespectful. That wasn't what it was. Oh, the end. Wow. Well, hope you guys enjoyed it. Interesting, bizarre, kind of weird story. Okay, well, thanks for watching. I'm not going to watch all the credits, but